Ladies and gentlemen, I love that mute button. I love it. It's so good. Welcome to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. Oh, it feels so good. It feels so good. If you haven't been on social media just soaking in the content, go do it. Just go do it. I'm excited that it's here. I will provide what I can through audio. But even at 20% speed or whatever speed they were moving at, it just feels good to get out there and see some of those videos of the guys moving on. See a completed pass from Jordan Love to Matthew Golden, you know. Savion Williams, I don't know what the heck was going on with that guy. They threw the red quarterback jersey on him, let him run routes, but he didn't catch passes, it doesn't appear. I saw him run routes, and everybody else is catching passes, and he just went through the route. And I'm like, I don't know. Who is it? Zane Anderson? Is that what is the Packer fan myth about Zane Anderson, that he doesn't exist or something? That's going to be Savion Williams. Is there really a Savion? He's this mythical being that's on the team, but you know, he kind of doesn't really have a position. He's a wide receiver / running back / apparently quarterback that runs routes but doesn't catch passes. Who is he really? What is he? Is he even? You know, like, is he really? I don't know. Prove it. But I want to go through the notes that I was able to cobble together. Thank you to everybody on the Packers media beat, and to whatever degree that you do that. Anyone that helps to put together these notes, greatly, greatly appreciated. There's never a time where I appreciate the Packers beat more than this time of year. OTAs, training camp, the whole thing. I've said it before, I say it every year, and I'll continue to say it every year. I don't think there is a fan base that gets the kind of content that we get. To have like 30 people that are out there live tweeting every twitchy movement that every single person makes. Packers undrafted free agent scratches his kneecap. Like, dang, bro. Which hand did he scratch it with? You know what I mean? And then they will probably provide that update. Like, it was his left hand on his right knee. Like, dang. All right, well, it is what it is, I guess, you know. Guy's freaking weird. What can I say? But we're up and at it. We got the notes from that, as well as Matt LaFleur press conference, which I'll just get it out of the way now. I could just wait until we play it, but it's on the front of my mind, and I can't just leave these things alone. I like Matt LaFleur. I do. And as I've said before, and apparently will continue to say, I think he went from a very tame, docile, kind of nervous sort of guy to go to the far end of the spectrum on the other side, where he's just too good for everybody. Because there have been some legitimate questions asked, and he just treats everyone like they're the biggest idiot. As somebody who appreciates telling somebody who's stupid that they're stupid, I don't know that all this is stupid. I think some of these are fair questions, you know? But not to Matt LaFleur. He's going to make you feel stupid and then very honestly and thoughtfully answer your question. But he's got to tell you you're stupid first. I don't know that I understand. Again, more appreciation for the beat writers for taking the beating. Maybe that's why they call them beat writers, because Matt LaFleur gives them beatings all the time. Anyways, currently not present at voluntary. I'll emphasize that because people get mad. It's voluntary. You don't have to. Okay. All right. Okay. Jaire, Elton Jenkins, John Williams, Tyron Herring, UDFA, try to keep up. UDFA corner. To be clear, I'm messing with you. I forgot. I didn't remember him. I'm bad with that stuff. And then, strangely, Brandon McManus was also not seen there. So, Jaire and Elton, we kind of understand. The other ones, not so much. I can't imagine that there's a single person that's not there because I don't really care. Maybe McManus is like, I'm old, I'm tired, I'm not doing it. We know Jaire, we know Elton. The other two are rookies. They don't just not show up for stuff like this. In addition to the people that didn't show up was a pretty lengthy list of people that were present but not practicing. Christian Watson obviously was out there but was just stretching, rehabbing. Some comments on him in a minute that are probably being overreacted to. Quay Walker was seen working off to the side. Marshawn Lloyd is in the rehab group, trying very hard to not overreact, but it's like, bro, I've been spending the entire season and offseason this past year going, don't forget about Marshawn Lloyd. Don't forget about him. He was hurt. He didn't play. He could be good. Let's You starting off in the injured group? You can't start in the injured group, bro. You got to be healthy sometimes. Anyways, Colin Oliver, rookie pass rusher / linebacker, was with the rehab group. Warren Brinson also was with the rehab group. Nesta Jade Silvera was working off to the side. John Fitzpatrick, the tight end, was working with the rehab group. Jeremiah Martin, linebacker, was working off to the side. And then finally, not quite finally, Jaden Janke was on the bike and in the rehab group. Janke is a wide receiver. Savion Williams, as I mentioned, he had the red no-contact jersey on. I don't know if it was precautionary or if it has something to do with some Wildcat thing. I don't have a clue. It looked like he was out on the field doing wide receiver stuff, so I don't really know. And then some limited participation. Kenny Clark was working to the side without a helmet. He was not a full participant and not doing 11-on-11s. Probably just has to do with the fact that he's Kenny Clark. The other kind of weird one was Javon Bullard. He was not taking team reps or doing 11-on-11. There's some speculation on that. All the speculation, first of all, I'm fine with. There's a lot of people being beaten down for having speculation. If you want to speculate, but we don't know. It is a little early to have any concrete thoughts, but it's again, if you want to wonder, I don't see a problem with that. But there is a question, and I've been asking this question for a long time now. Where does Javon Bullard fit? He's not safety 1. He's not safety 2. I'm not positive if he's safety 3. He is not currently our slot guy, even if Jaire doesn't come back. I think you're going to have Valentine and Keyshawn on the outside with Hobbs in the slot. We didn't pay Hobbs to not play. The only way I could see Bullard doing it is if they felt that Hobbs and maybe Keyshawn were best on the boundary ahead of Valentine and then Bullard in the slot. I just can't imagine that's your best trio at corner, though. So, I mean, like everybody, you want to give him the full opportunity to go out and see if he can improve, see what he can do out there. Maybe this will give him a little bit of an opportunity to kind of focus. I'm hoping at safety. A lot of people really want him in the slot. I never understood that. My preference, you're a safety. You're going to train at safety. You're going to learn at safety. You are right now a backup safety, and, we drafted you relatively early for a reason. We like your skill set. And that's the end of the story. We're just going to see what you can do. But I don't know. As of right now, we will see. I'm sure, like with everything else, when you look at things, we start making assumptions today, and by tomorrow, Javon Bullard is, safety 2 or something, or in the slot, or whatever the case may be. All right, some of the notes from Matt LaFleur. Obviously, they asked him about the limitations with OTAs and what can you really get done, and he seemed kind of annoyed. Again, first of all, with the question, but also seemed annoyed that he's not allowed to really push the team. It's a CBA thing. So he's like, yeah, it's pretty tough. Can't really do anything, but it is what it is. I guess the 2-minute drill did go full speed, but 7-on-7 has some certain limitations. He says up front is where the biggest challenges lie. There's no stunts, limited rush techniques, trying to keep guys off the ground. So really, it's not, you got to tell the guys up front, it's all just kind of half speed type of stuff. You can't really make contact with anybody. So it's really, in all phases, it's kind of like a 7-on-7. It's a lot of just quarterbacks throwing to wide receivers who are kind of being covered, but not really with any physicality or anything. Certainly no tackling. Did say it's good for quarterbacks to get a feel for what the pocket is going to feel like versus the 7-on-7 where they can kind of just sit back there. Because there is pass rush in some of these drills. I mean, in terms of, there's notes of Lucas Van Ness got to the quarterback. He's obviously never going to touch the quarterback, but it gives you sort of that, okay, you can't just stand there. You got to either move and throw or run or something. In slower periods, he says there should be flawless technique in regards to taking the right footwork and just playing with good pad level. So it is, again, he's not super excited about it, but there is an expectation of, okay, we're going at half speed. This is where you need to really demonstrate that you can do things flawlessly. He made some notes on Christian Watson, said he's doing outstanding and is ahead of schedule, but he notes that he's not a doctor. This is obviously a note everybody's overreacting to. First of all, I feel like every single person in the history of the universe, when it comes to at least the Packers, when they're injured, they're ahead of schedule. Everybody's ahead of schedule. David Bakhtiari was ahead of schedule, and he didn't play for like 3 years. we thought he could start the season, and he just basically never came back. Everyone is always ahead of schedule. Another thing to keep in mind, because again, I'm going to allow you all to speculate however you choose to speculate, but I'm just going to add in my notes. Number one, again, everyone's always ahead of schedule. And number two, there is a timetable to this. There are things that would be superhuman. Well, they're football players. No, I understand that. Even within the realm of superhuman athletes with the greatest doctors in the world, there is still a minimum timetable here. So, if everything is going absolutely 100% perfect, I don't have the dates today. It might be something to work on, like when's the fastest somebody has ever recovered in the NFL from an ACL. But there is a minimum timeline here. So let's at least not get ridiculous, and let's recognize that there is still the difference between he's on track to be back at when we thought he would and he's coming back early is not that big of a difference. As far as the broader injury stuff with all those guys I listed that were out, he says, I don't really anticipate anything too long-term with any of these guys beyond Christian Watson, which is good, but again, we'll see. Kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit with these Matt LaFleur notes because we haven't talked about it yet, but Sean Rhyan spent a lot of time at center today with Elton Jenkins being out. It was essentially Sean Rhyan and Monk kind of going back and forth between center and guard, which is kind of interesting. He says, we're confident in him. He's been training like this for a couple of years now, talking about how much time has Sean Rhyan spent at center. I think they really like Sean Rhyan, and for decent reason. I think he's a flexible piece. I think we're all at this point hoping he's a backup, but I think he can be a pretty high-quality backup that can play pretty much anywhere on the interior, which is pretty cool. Talked about leadership, said, leadership is something we're trying to emphasize this offseason. So, yes, Jordan is more vocal and all that stuff. Talked a lot about the wide receivers, in fact. The question came up again about Jaden Reed. Did you know anything about the whole situation with him not knowing? And Matt LaFleur answered that question for a second time. It's already been answered. But he was asked, how Jaden Reed's doing. He said, phenomenal. Now, this might just be a reaction to the fact that everybody's kind of coming down on Jaden Reed and all this stuff. So he's kind of pushing back on it, but he's went out of his way to talk about how great Jaden Reed is, how great he's been, his leadership ability, which, again, is something they're emphasizing across the board, especially for a young team. Some of you guys got to step into that role. And it sounds like the wide receivers, Jordan Love has for a while now, the wide receivers are kind of taking that to heart. Matt, there's some notes about Christian Watson being off to the side, spending a lot of times, especially with Savion Williams, kind of going through some stuff. He talked extensively again about Jaden Reed helping these guys through some stuff. So it's good to hear. I'm hoping it's not just lip service to a group of wide receivers that, number one, have been getting hammered, and as a coach, he's trying to protect, and number two, maybe trying to pump them up a little bit, a group that might be a little frustrated with their current situation. Again, we're speculating. I'm just giving you my thoughts on something to keep in mind before we just jump to the extremes of everything is true. He also mentioned Wicks, Bo Melton, and Malik Heath as groups that are guys that are helping out a lot. Talking about Jordan Love specifically, he said, quote, he's certainly comfortable in helping lead others and telling them what to do. He's a coach on the field. He also talked about his system mastery, saying he knows the offense as good as anybody in regards to the details. We've been hearing that for a while, that it's basically Matt LaFleur and then Jordan Love. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but he surely has been in with Matt LaFleur for a very long time, which is awesome, by the way. I mean, if there's anybody on planet Earth that is an expert in how Matt LaFleur plays offense, Jordan Love would be in the top 5, I think. I mean, you could probably put Aaron in there because he spent a lot of time and is super smart. Some of the coordinators in that group, possibly even Shanahan, because, he's kind of where a lot of that came from. But the specifics that differentiate them, he's in that group. Said that Jordan is vocal more so this year than even in the past. Did push back a lot on, he kind of unprompted came out and said, there's this narrative out there that Jordan Love was not very productive last year. Because, the question came out, well, what do you expect from him? What does he have to do better? And all the injury stuff. And he said, just to be clear, he missed a lot of time, and so that's going to hurt your production. Now, one of the things Matt LaFleur does that he's done since the Aaron Rodgers days, I think he goes above and beyond to protect quarterbacks. He did this with Rodgers, and it drove me nuts. I think to some degree he's doing it with Jordan. I don't dispute anything. I know he was injured, and I know that impacts things. I know his receivers had drops. I know that impacts things. But much like what I do with the Bears quarterbacks and whatnot, you can isolate situations where there's no pressure, where there's no drops, where there's all these, and you can still see a decline in production. Now, maybe it's because he's injured and because he doesn't trust the play calls and the drops and the players around him and the protections and whatever. But again, I'm not going to be so quick to just dismiss everything and pretend that all the issues, first of all, there were no issues, it's just that he missed days. No, if you look at some of the production stuff, or the accuracy in particular, pretty putrid. So I get it. I'm with it. I'm willing to accept that there's some excuses there, but I'm not willing to accept it whole cloth. Like, any criticism is nonsense, and if he had played a full season exactly the way he played the entire year, that he would have just been a great quarterback. That's not true. You take his metrics and extrapolate that out over 18, 19, 20 games, however many games he played. No, there would still be questions. For me, anyways. But he also goes out and talks about, there were a lot of drops and stuff too, which is another thing I don't, I get it. I understand that you don't want the quarterback to just be run over. But at the same time, again, this was unprompted. And the constant need to throw people under the Jordan Love bus, which he did with Aaron Rodgers too. It's like this whole mentality of, I don't want my guys being thrown under the bus. However, when it comes to the quarterback, I will throw everybody under the bus to protect the quarterback. The coaches were bad. The receivers can't catch. The offensive line can't block. It's like, that's kind of messed up for you to just say all this stuff, but okay. Talking about Banks, just says the obvious that he's a big dude. Also said there's a lot of similarities in scheme, so it should be pretty seamless to get him in there. I am excited about Banks. I'm skeptical because a lot of times when, we hear all these great things, but PFF is like, he's not very good. Usually PFF is right. As much as everybody wants to make fun of PFF, generally speaking, it doesn't really pan out. Now, there have been exceptions like Devondre Campbell and Rasul Douglas and whatnot, but usually those were, we got them super cheap and there were no expectations and then they blew up. This is, we paid a guy a bunch of money to be really good because we think he's really good right now today and has been for a long time, and PFF's like, no, he hasn't been. Those are the guys that, I just don't want it to be a Billy Turner situation, I guess. But whatever. Provides us with a lot of flexibility with everybody else around him, blah, blah, blah. Edgerrin Cooper, now 240 pounds, was 220 last year. Still looks like he's moving as good as he was last year. They said they do DEXA scans and all that stuff for body composition. Said he's in a lot better place than he was. Presumably, they looked at him at 220 and said, you're not carrying as much as you can, right? There is such a thing as too much and too little and all that, and you kind of, you do the DEXA scans or whatever, and you say, ideally, this is what your body can handle, and you would look like, and 240 is a little closer to where they'd like them. Said he looks as explosive as I've ever seen him. This is the one area where I was like, I don't understand why you're being so pissy about it. My understanding of the question was, if you gain weight, are there any concerns that you might slow down or anything like that? And he was not happy with that question. I think it's a legitimate question. If you can, I understand it's not 20 pounds of fat added, but 20 pounds of weight is still 20 pounds of weight. And the ability to, cut and explode and all those things, they tend to go down by whatever 20 pounds impacts it. So I didn't think it was a terrible question. I thought it was a legitimate question. Didn't really get an answer, though. All right, why don't we take a break? We'll run through the last couple comments, and then we'll get to the rest of the notes from camp, and we'll see where that leaves us. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, continuing. Some questions about pass rush. Where can that improve? He says, going to be a little cleaner in our rush lanes, not allow big gaps up front. Talked about communication. Guys have a really good understanding of when we do rush for what everybody's responsibility is. And then also praised Kenny Clark a little bit, his technique, level of detail, ability to communicate, and bring in energy to the room. Talked up Josh Jacobs. We don't need to get into that. Talked about Sean Mannion. Said he's extremely detailed, going to cross every T, dot every I. Talked a little bit, because remember, they started the 27th. This was the 28th, so it was it was their second day of practice. He talked about the 2 days and said yesterday, as in the 27th, really wasn't great, wasn't clean. Thought today was much more productive. Talked about how every year you kind of start from scratch. They had talked about this earlier with, Matt LaFleur as well as their DC, I think it was, talking about essentially you want to get them caught back up as fast as possible. There's always going to be kind of a resetting back to zero, relearn the basics, go through all this stuff, but the sooner we can get back to where we were last year, the sooner we can start to grow. So I think there's always going to be some frustration where you come in and it's like, what the heck is going on? Still remember the first math class I took in college. It was finite mathematics, and teacher came in and he just asked us the most basic stuff, like, what does this mean? What does this mean? None of us had any idea. I mean, we heard the terms before. I don't freaking remember, dude. He walked out. He just walked out of the classroom. He's like, I don't know how to teach you if you don't know these things. You should have learned these things in high school. You should know them by now. It's like, I don't know what to tell you, boss. We don't know it, so it looks like we're starting over a little bit. But all right, let's get into some of the practice notes here. Offensive line configuration is another thing with a ton of speculation already. Couple things to keep in mind. Number one, these things are very fluid as far as who lines up where, when. Number two, part of the situation has to do with your preparation level. Some of the newer guys might not be ready to be taking first-team reps. Maybe they need to learn a little bit more about tackle. Maybe they need to learn some more about guard. These things are, again, fluid. Number three, some of this is going to depend on who's there and who's not. So how does Elgton Jenkins being out change the situation and the dynamic of who goes where, when, why? With that said, it doesn't mean nothing. So speculating, again, perfectly fine. Somewhere in between is the truth, and kind of where you line up, I'll leave that up to you. But from left to right, I think primarily we saw Rasheed Walker at left tackle, Aaron Banks at left guard, Jacob Monk / Sean Ryan, but let's just call it Jacob Monk at center, Sean Ryan at right guard, Zach Tom at right tackle. Immediate thoughts. Aaron Banks is pretty well locked in at guard. We know Elgton is going to be locked in at center, and so Jacob Monk will probably be the backup center, although again, we'll see what happens with Sean Ryan. My thought is that Sean Ryan will be sort of a swing interior guy, and so they're getting him as many reps at center and guard as they possibly can. Zach Tom, we know, is going to be the right tackle. Rasheed Walker is currently the starting left tackle. A lot of people also kind of freaking out that Sean Ryan got first snaps at right guard. I think generally, although it's not always the case, generally speaking, the guy that had the job has the job, and it's kind of theirs to lose. Sometimes it's more performative where you know they're going to lose that job and you kind of give it to them for a day or two and then quickly move them off. Sometimes it's not, and they're currently the best and you're going to have to prove that you're better. Early draft picks kind of make that a little bit more questionable, so you can certainly, again, if you want to make something of that because we have a first and second round pick, that's fine, but just don't get too loud about it because this will change over time. Jordan Morgan was primarily getting reps behind Walker at left tackle. He also did some work at right guard. I saw it was hilarious because Jordan Morgan was primarily working at tackle. And then for like a snap or two, he goes to right guard, and I see somebody put out like a whole article about, see, I told you he was going to be a guard. See, they put him at guard. It's like, what are you talking about, dude? Freaking calm down. Apparently, the second time through, Jordan Morgan was getting reps at left tackle with the starting unit. So again, that's kind of one of those, keep an eye on it. Another semi-interesting thing, Anthony Belton, as of right now, is working at right and left tackle with the 2s and 3s. Apparently, he was getting a ton of significant reps. So, I don't know. Day one, what to make of that. I can't imagine he's here to be a backup, but we know he's not going to get the right tackle job. Although some people speculate maybe Zach Tom moves to left tackle. I just would rather not mess with that. But we'll see. I would anticipate at some point Anthony Belton gets a couple reps at right guard just to see how it goes, but maybe they just don't see him in that way at all. I don't know. We will see. Jordan Love, obviously first-team quarterback, described as looking clean, natural, full understanding of the offense in year 6. He connected on a 50-yard bomb to Dontayvion Wicks with perfect placement. He went 5 of 6 in the 2-minute drill, led the team to a red zone for field goal. I think he got down to like the 3-yard line. They weren't kicking field goals, probably primarily because they didn't really have a kicker, but also because they just weren't kicking. They probably had a kicker, but our main kicker wasn't there. I don't know which kickers we have. 3 completions to Romeo Doubs for 34 yards in that 2-minute drill. Malik Willis led a nice drive, including a 29-yard pass to Luke Musgrave. He hit Musgrave for a 21-yard corner route versus Zane Anderson on 3rd and 3. He moved the second-team offense into field goal range in the 2-minute drill. Sean Clifford with the third team saw a little bit more mixed results. He overthrew receivers on a couple different deep attempts. He did hit Heath along the sideline, but overall kind of struggled. Looking at some of the receivers, Romeo Doubs, he was obviously present at OTAs, getting extra work from Jason Vrabel during the special teams. Had the ball go through his hands, although the throw was a little behind him from Love. He had overall 3 catches for 34 yards in the 2-minute drill, including a 12-yard slant on 3rd and 2. Dontayvion Wicks had a really nice practice, looks bigger this year. I will say, I was going to tweet it out just because it was just a thought I had, but then I know how social media overreacts to everything, and I'm like, people are just going to freak out about this. But there was a very simple, like, press man drill. Coaches lined up across from guys, and then you just had to kind of release to the outside and get upfield. And my immediate thought was, and this is what I chose not to tweet, because, again, people are going to freak out. If you had asked me, if I didn't know anything about the Packers, say I understood football but not the Packers, and it was just like, okay, who is this team's number one receiver? Let's assume it's not in order. Who's their number one receiver? I would have said Dontayvion Wicks. The way he is so big and physical and gets off the line and gets up the field, the way his body moves, I mean, it's easy to see why some people can't give up on the guy. He just has that number one wide receiver swagger and movement and power and just, he has that thing that I don't know that any of the other guys really have. Romeo might be kind of in second place with that right now, and I haven't really seen much from the rookies at all. I don't think Savion Williams was even doing that drill. And Golden was, I mean, he's obviously you can't see his speed. They're going at, for him, probably 15%. I think he even had to slow down for the ball. But yeah, there's just something about Wicks, man. I don't know if it's ever going to materialize. I don't want to say I've given up on him because I haven't, but I've resigned myself to the fact that he's probably not going to reach that full ceiling that I hope that he does. But man, you watch him and it's like, jeez. It's all there. I just don't know why it hasn't materialized, but it's such a beautiful thing. Again, 50-yard bomb from Love behind the secondary, poetry in motion, it was called. Caught the corner route on the right sideline. No drops after he did mishandle a punt earlier in practice. Matthew Golden, quoted as having very fun pace to his routes. So there's a lot of talk about his pace, which is fair because there wasn't really a whole lot of full speed out there, so it's hard to judge, although some people did comment on even at half speed, you can kind of tell the speed is different. He did take some punt return reps behind Reed and Doubs, natural at catching the punts, so there were no fumbles there, real clean catches. He was getting reps with first-team offense in 3 wide receiver sets. Christian Watson, over to the sideline stretching, spent a lot of time with rookie Savion Williams. Savion Williams in his red no-contact jersey for whatever reason. They joked that he did mention he had the best arm at TCU, so maybe they want him at Wildcat quarterback or something. Josh Jacobs was there working with the first team, had a nice wheel route for 19 yards in the 2-minute drill. Marshawn Lloyd sitting over with the rehab group. Tucker Kraft worked with the team. There's a lot of 12 personnel apparently. A lot of Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft out with the ones. Nate Hobbs was doing some work out there today. He had the one pass that I am aware of to Tucker Kraft got broken up by Nate Hobbs. Luke Musgrave, again, was out there quite a bit in 12 personnel with Kraft. 29-yard catch from Willis in second team. 21-yard corner route versus Anderson. Field stretching ability was on display. Had a pass broken up by Hobbs on 7-on-7. So, again, out there doing some work. First team defensive line, you had Gary and Van Ness out there with Colby and Wyatt on the interior. Obviously, with Kenny being limited, that would be why, but it's still kind of one of those Colby Wooden. So it's Wyatt, Clark, Wyatt, Wooden is kind of, again, it's early, but immediate lineup, that's kind of where we're at. Second team saw in the 2-minute drill, I guess Lucas Van Ness was doing quite a bit of stuff on the interior, so they kind of kicked him inside for that. Had Mosby outside along with Wooden on the interior. I'm not sure who the other person was in the 2-minute on outside. Not positive. That note got messed up. As far as linebackers, Edgerrin Cooper, again, mentioned as definitely looking bigger. Starting linebackers with, I mean, it's exciting, but remember, Quay was off to the sideline. But you had Cooper, McDuffie, and then Tyron Hopper out there as your starting linebackers. Isaiah Simmons was mentioned as being pretty much eye level with Luke Musgrave, talking about how big he is. He's working as a gunner on special teams right now, looked pretty great beating a double team. It's kind of weird to think of Isaiah Simmons as being kind of a down-the-roster guy who needs to win a special teams job, but it's kind of where we're at right now. Secondary, Keyshawn Nixon was starting outside in base. He did move around a little bit. Nate Hobbs started outside, eventually moved into nickel. Carrington Valentine took over outside, so when Hobbs moved, so you got, Hobbs and Nixon outside, and then Valentine comes in with Hobbs going inside for the nickel, which makes perfect sense to me, and I would be completely fine with that, assuming Jaire doesn't come back, which we're not assuming. I'm just saying, in that scenario. There's also a ton of talk about Gregory Jr. Gregory Jr. was the guy out of Wichita Baptist. They're saying he was getting a surprising number of first-team reps as a recent free agent signing. He was working nickel with the number 1 defense, so it'll be kind of interesting. Again, there's all kinds of weird, fluid things that happen. This is day 2. Maybe they're trying some different stuff. They did something different yesterday. They'll do something different tomorrow, whatever. But it's one of those things you kind of keep in the back of your mind as we move forward to see if, especially as the 53 cutdowns come through, guys like this might end up taking a more prominent role than expected. Safeties, you had Xavier McKinney starting. Evan Williams was starting, rotating with McKinney. And then you had Zane Anderson. Again, that's where you come in and say, would Zane be number 3? Is Zane just filling in as number 3 because something's going on with Bullard? Don't really know that situation, but Zane Anderson was rotating in behind the starters today. Some of the coverage notes, base lineup, Williams and McKinney at safety, Nixon and Hobbs outside with nickel. Again, Nixon, Valentine outside, Hobbs in the slot. Hobbs with multiple pass breakups, including versus Kraft and Musgrave. Finally, special teams, Jaden Reed was first up on punt returns. Romeo was second. Matthew Golden was third. Also taking some reps were Nixon, Wicks. Hardman, I don't think, took one, which is strange. Some of the gunners listed as Nate Hobbs was first team, along with Carrington Valentine, first team gunners. Mentioned Isaiah Simmons also doing a good job out there. There was no kicking and no Brandon McManus today for whatever reason. Some other just general notes was a slow-paced 11-on-11 and 7-on-7 work today. Heavy use of 12 personnel with Kraft and Musgrave. First, second, and third team all went through 2-minute drills. Again, first and second team ended in field goals. Third team, defense won. No pads, shorts only. Notables of the day, again, Love 50-yard bomb to Wicks. Hobbs with a couple pass breakups. Willis's 29-yard pass to Musgrave. And then Love's 3 completions to Dobbs in the 2-minute drill. I think that's about it. I'm going to save these notes here, and then when we come back, there were some other people that spoke to the media, some of the players. I want to go through a little bit of that, and then we'll get up out of here. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so let's get started with Jordan Love. Here he is directly talking about not the injury, but the injuries and just maybe how that kind of affected him through the season.
Point last season after week 1. Did the knee feel right?
Man, I'd say it's tough because, I had the knee that wasn't feeling good, and once I kind of started getting better is when my groin, I was dealing with that. So, I'd say about halfway through the season, towards the back half, I took the knee stabilizer that I was wearing off. But some of those injuries that who knows if you're ever really healthy until you get a little time to sit, really not do anything. So, I'd say it wasn't something that was just bothering me on a daily basis. Everything I did, there'd be little movements, things like that might hinder it. But definitely those first couple of games that I came back, it still bothered me. So yeah.
So when you get into this off season, how long was the period of time where you just needed to heal? And how long did that take until your body kind of felt back to where you want it to be, where you can go and work on things?
Yeah, I'd say after a couple weeks of not doing football every day, I was feeling better. But at the same time, that's just doing the workouts that I'm doing. I wasn't back fully on the field yet, doing quarterback drops and all those different movements, and having guys chase me and having to react to some of those things. So I think the reactionary part with the knee injury, some of the planning you do is when you're not expecting to cut, things like that is what messes you up a little bit. So I think in the off season I felt good. I feel good now. I think every day that kind of went on where I'm not in the building doing strenuous football every single day helped heal that.
Sorry about that doubling. I don't know if that's Ryan Wood or what, but whenever there's a recording by somebody on here, it's always doubled up like that. It's very weird. But again, just kind of giving some perspective on what he went through. Here's a little bit more from Jordan Love talking about the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I think you talk about Super Bowl, that's the goal for us. We talked about that last year, and that's the same message this year is we're trying to win a Super Bowl. So I'm definitely trying to be that guy to be able to take this team and lead them to that. I think when you talk about Aaron and what he did in his third year, I never try and compare because, that's so hard to do. There's so many different situations that go on. But at the end of the day, like you said, I've been here going on year 6, going on my third year playing. So, everything's right there in front of us and for this team. So it's just about going out there, executing. But the goal is definitely a Super Bowl. That's the mindset we have, and we're going to put in the work to be able to hopefully get there.
After Jordan spoke, we got to hear a little bit from Xavier McKinney. He spoke a little bit about Jaire. Here's a little bit of what he had to say.
This offseason, do you keep in touch with him? How often? Do you think this team, needs him, and would you like him back in the fold and for him and the team to work something out?
I mean, yeah, we would all like him back. I talk to him every day, pretty much. So just try to stay connected with him. Obviously, we've developed a great relationship with each other. But my thing that I always try to talk about is that's his his own situation, and I want the best for him. So at the end of the day, I'm gonna be behind him regardless of what the situation's going on. We've developed a relationship good enough off the field to where it's I just want what's best for you, and I'm gonna be there regardless. You know what I'm saying? So I've been vocal about that, with him, and like I said, we good friends. So, but we all, we want him here, and but however that situation plays out, that's how it plays out, and I just want whatever's best for him.
How do you strike that balance of you want him back, so obviously you're biased there, you like him, but also kind of giving him that space to sort through this himself? How do you balance that out, especially as a friend?
Just knowing that it's more to life than just football. Obviously, he's got his own life and his own things that he does outside of football, so it's not always about what's going on, in the building. Obviously, he's got different things just in a life aspect. So I just try to be there for him, in a life, aspect standpoint. So that's why I say, it's really, it's whatever, is best for him. And that's really for him to kind of explain, not for me to say. So, but like I said, I just try to be there for him, whenever he needs me, and we talk daily. So, yeah.
Nothing earth-shattering there. I think the only real takeaway that I had from it is there's obviously something there, right? As we'll find out with Jaden Reed in just a minute, if there's nothing, people say there's nothing, right? This has been blown out of proportion. It's just a contract restructuring. It's no big deal. Xavier McKinney is saying we'd love to have him back, but he's got to do what's best for him. That makes no sense in the context in which Jaire isn't considering going somewhere else. I understand the new report that he wants to be in Green Bay, and that's fine. That doesn't mean he has to be in Green Bay or that anything like that. There is some kind of a dispute, some kind of a thing going on. And Xavier McKinney doesn't know how that's going to play out, but he hopes that he ends up in Green Bay. That's the situation. It's a little bit more from McKinney.
I think my biggest thing is, I like to say, I have my foot on their necks, and really it's just going to be the same. I'm not going to let off the gas for nothing or nobody.
There you go. David McKinney also said we're going to be loaded on the back end. We've got a lot of guys that can do a lot of things at a high level. And then finally, Jaden Reed, he said it took 4 to 5 months of his shoulder dislocation, partially torn labrum to heal, but he didn't need surgery. This took place in the game against the Philadelphia Eagles in the third quarter, so it wasn't something that was really lingering through the season at all, or it didn't linger through the season at all, but sounds like it took some time for him to fully heal that this offseason. Here is Jaden Reed talking a little bit about that whole situation with what's my status on the team, blah, blah, blah.
A lot of people misinterpreted that. I hired a new agent, and we talked about it before even the draft, really, that, he said that he was going to talk to, the front office and everybody here to, just catch up and make sure everybody on the same page. And as a new client, he told me that's the way he was going to do it, and he did it. So, Now, I don't know how it got out because it was supposed to be confidential, but that's how it goes sometimes, you know. People get a different perception, and, you know, they make their own perception, which is okay. But that's how it goes sometimes. So.
Hey, Jaden, I have a thought as to how it got out. Your agent's a friggin' scumbag. Just a thought. I mean, you know, maybe not. Maybe it's the Packers who are historically tight-lipped and nothing ever gets out of Green Bay. But no, this is definitely not your agent who's, you know, been a part of a lot of things involving a lot of different leaks. But no, I mean, this is kind of what had been alluded to for a while. You know, Schefter throws it out there and then is like, well, you guys overreacted, even though Schefter's the one that freaking overreacted. But he even said, you know, this was before the draft. You know, new agent, we sat down, we had a conversation. He's like, you know, what I'm going to do for you, I'm going to go talk to the Packers, just kind of make sure we're on the same page with your role on the team and all that kind of stuff. And Jaden's like, okay, dude, whatever. Like, I don't know. You ever hire people to do stuff for you, like an accountant or whatever, and they start going through stuff and they're like, oh, yeah, you know, this credit and, you know, go get me these forms. And it's like, okay, will do, dog. I don't know what you're talking about. Whatever you say, Chief. I'm paying you because you're supposed to know what's best. I don't freaking know. What are you asking me for? So then they do that. The draft happens. There's a bunch of wide receivers, so everybody interprets that to mean, well, it must be because of that. In other words, that's what caused it. Well, it obviously isn't what caused it because it's triggered before the draft. Now, again, that doesn't mean some of the wide receivers might not be seeing the draft and going, what the heck? It's possible. But these two particular things don't really connect. Here's Jaden Reed talking specifically about drafting a receiver.
With all that said, was there anything that you felt you wanted to have clarified after how this offseason went?
I mean, not necessarily. That's what our exit meetings are for. You know, that's why I talked to Coach, and, you know, that's why I talked to Matt. That's why I talked to Braves, Steno, you know, everybody. I've been talking to Goody. So, you know, all that stuff for us, you know, we have those conversations. We clarify what we need to clarify in-house. So I don't think, you know, any of that is, you know, I think all that is done in-house, and we clarify what I need to get better at.
By the way, this is all great information because we kind of act as though everything's real hush-hush and there's no communication and everything gets misconstrued. And the team obviously has a very open-door policy where it's like, first of all, we need to be, and Matt LaFleur said this, the best way to handle these kinds of things is being very open and very honest and very communicative about everything that happens. And so Jaden Reed saying, yeah, I talked to the head coach, I talked to the receivers coach, I talked to the offensive coordinator, I talked to the GM. Like, I if I have a concern, if I have a question, I go to them. They come to me. Like, we have exit interviews, so we talk about, like, how the season went, what we want to see moving forward. Like, all this stuff has been very communicated throughout this process, especially by the end of the year.
You know, what they want from me and everything, and, you know, I'm here to just do my job and take care of those things.
Were you watching the draft?
Yeah, no doubt. Yep.
What'd you think when you saw a receiver?
I thought it was, I mean, honestly, if you want to be real, I knew we were taking a receiver. We kind of talked about it in-house a little bit, so I kind of already knew that was going to happen. So, yeah, it was great. I mean, the whole, you know, him being here, you know, that was crazy. You know, it being in Green Bay, that was a surreal moment, I know, for him, because, you know, I know when I got the call and it was my birthday, it was crazy. But him being here live, I know that was crazy. So, and then Savion as well, you know, great player, dynamic, you know, playmaker. So that's another great piece to this offense. You know, that's what we need. We need more playmakers that can help us win on Sundays.
So there you go, man. I mean, again, we can try to speculate through all this and say he's lying. And listen, there might be something on, but at the end of the day, it's not about you can't have these sort of thoughts or feelings or whatever. It's about you need to control that. You need to be able to get out there in front of it. You need to recognize the situation and be an adult and handle it the right way, and that's what he's doing. He recognizes the situation. I'm sure he's adult enough, mature enough to recognize that maybe the receiver room probably needed a little something. Even if he's like, no, I know I can be that guy, and Christian and Romy, I know we can be fine, but you also know that you haven't been those guys. And so you're getting some help, and it's going to help your offense, and you're going to go out there, and you're going to make a lot of money, and you're going to do great in the NFL. Everything's fine. We don't need to panic. We don't need to pout. And a lot of guys do that. They'll pout right in front of the media, and they'll do all these things. And it's not just so much what happened and how you feel. It's about what happened and how you react to it. How do you handle it as a grown adult human being? And the point is, from what we've heard from Matt LaFleur, from what we just heard from Jaden Reed, and what we heard about Christian Watson, all these guys are handling it the right way. I'm sure they would love it if we'd have drafted a bunch of defensive people because that gives them further job security. Well, what are you going to do? Get rid of me? You got nobody else. Ha! But that's not the way the NFL works. That's not the way it ever works. And at some point, you will lose your job and somebody will take it, whether it's because you suck or because you're 40. I don't know. But it's going to happen. Be an adult, handle it like a man, and move on with your life. And it sounds exactly like that. A lot of the drama was manufactured. For whatever the discomfort may be for these guys, they also are handling it the right way. Jaden Reed also went on to say, I'm not the type to care about targets. I really don't care about it. I can have 2 targets. If we win, I don't care. Reed said he models himself after Aaron Jones, about the most selfless superstar there has ever been. Again, how much of that is actually true? I'm positive on some level he gets a little bit, tiny bit more excited when he gets more targets and when he's a big part of the way. Right. But it's not just about, oh, he's a liar, so I'm going to disregard all this. On some level, there's a lot of things that maybe we don't necessarily intuitively feel that we have to drive toward. I don't feel like going to work, but I'm going to be a big boy and I'm going to put my pants on. I'm going to do it because I know that it's important and I know that it's right. Make my bed, do the dishes, take a shower, brush your teeth, right? All the basic things that everybody understands. Jaden Reed understands that what he's talking about is the right way for a person to be and to act and how to think. On some level, there's always going to be this internal selfishness that's inside. It's not do you necessarily seriously believe this 100,000%. It's about, do you seriously believe that this is the best way to be, and are you striving to be it? And it sounds like the answer is yes. And I believe that that is the case. And I think that's a good thing. He understands what is right, and he's striving for it. But all right, we're back. We're after it. It's going to be a little while before we get more, but that's fine. It's all right. I'll take the crumbs, and I'll be grateful for it. Anyways, we're back, folks. It's a great time to be alive. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.